The first red flag wasn't the corporate invite labeled mandatory organizational sync. It was the timestamp. 6:47 a.m. Not 6:30, not 7, but 6:47 a.m. That specific, petty hour chosen by executives who wear performance vests, practice fake mindfulness, and possess absolutely no soul. Nora Vance walked into the executive boardroom with the chilling composure of a woman who had backed up her entire life on multiple external drives. Her dark hair was still damp, her oversized blazer draped over an old band shirt, holding a cold coffee like a weapon. Across the long mahogany table sat Vance Holloway, our chief technology officer and human manifestation of a corporate buzzword. He was flanked by two human resources reps who looked as if they were rehearsing a sympathetic face in a mirror. "Nora," Vance said, flashing a smile with all the genuine warmth of a dead battery. "You have been a foundational pillar here. But as we transition into modern automated frameworks, legacy roles evolve." "Legacy people do too," added the senior rep, reading from a laminated script. "This is a strategic restructuring, not a reflection of your work." Vance chuckled softly, leaning forward. "A machine replaces you now, Nora." 4 words. That was the entirety of my severance speech. Not a single thank you. No acknowledgement of the decade I gave this company. Just a smug declaration from a guy who thought he was a visionary because he knew how to talk about innovation in meetings. I sat there, my knuckles turning white around my paper cup until the cardboard creaked. I did not scream. I did not throw my drink. I just stared at him, mapping out every vulnerability in his personal firewall. HR pushed an exit packet across the table like it was a gift card instead of my professional obituary. I slowly flipped through the pages, my eyes scanning the fine print until I hit page 4. There it was. My termination date was effective immediately, exactly 2 days before my contract's 10-year auto-renewal clause triggered. They thought they were outsmarting me. They thought they had timed my execution to perfection so they would not have to pay out my long-term operational equity. "Any questions?" the HR representative asked, pen hovering over her notepad. I looked up, meeting Vance's eyes directly. "I wrote the core architecture," I said quietly. Vance smiled wider, waving a hand dismissively. "Of course, and we respect your past contributions. That is why the replacement engineering team arrives next week. You will lead a brief knowledge transfer before your final sign-off. It should not take more than a few hours." I nodded once, my jaw locked tight as I fought the urge to leap across the table. The meeting ended with cold handshakes and empty condolences. I walked out of that room carrying a manila folder in one hand and a furnace of quiet rage in my chest. I did not cry. I did not slam any doors on my way out. I walked straight back to my desk, logged into my master terminal one last time, and updated a hidden entry in my private encrypted vault. License override trigger 9 activated. Countdown initiated. T-46 hours until system check. By the time the office floor emptied that evening, I had already extracted every piece of data that mattered. My system logs, my private contingencies, my complete architectural history. Clause 9C had been embedded in the base licensing code since build version 2.3. It was a condition no board member had ever questioned because none of them actually understood the infrastructure they were standing on. It clearly stated that involuntary termination of the lead architect immediately voided the core software license without a grace period. Corporate legal had signed off on it years ago without reading past the header. My final exit interview took place in a windowless room that felt like a meat locker. I sat across from a junior compliance officer who flipped through forms with total detachment. "Let us complete the offboarding checklist," she said, her voice dripping with artificial cheer. Laptop returned, security badge surrendered, corporate phone sealed in an envelope. I signed every document she handed me, my pen cutting into the paper like a scalpel. Every signature felt like a final nail in the coffin of the decade I had spent building this firm. "Just a reminder," the officer said, tapping the final document. "Your non-disclosure agreement remains active for 36 months post-separation. This covers all proprietary code, system logic, and internal architecture." I blinked, hiding a bitter smile. They truly believed an agreement could stop me. They did not understand that I was the architecture. I built every system, named every function, and patched every critical vulnerability while they slept soundly in their suburban homes. "Our new partners are taking over system maintenance starting Monday," the HR manager chimed in, sipping a bright pink energy drink. "They plan to containerize the entire network structure to streamline our cloud migration." I tilted my head slightly. That sounds like an ambitious plan. I hope their deployment strategy accounts for kernel panics under heavy load. Neither of them understood the warning. They just smiled blankly as the clock hit 2:16 in the afternoon, the exact second my employment status flipped to terminated in the central database. I reached into my bag and pulled out the unexecuted severance package. I slid it back across the desk and signed. The compliance officer frowned. Is there an issue? I am declining the payout, I stated plainly. You are waiving a massive severance package, the HR manager warned, her eyebrows rising. That is my choice, I replied, standing up from my chair. Without another word, I picked up my coat and walked out of the building. The glass doors clicked shut behind me, severing my ties to the company forever. Back in my apartment, I sat in front of my personal workstation, the cooling fans humming softly in the dark room. I accessed the external license management system I had created years ago, an independent node completely isolated from corporate networks. I entered my official separation timestamp, uploaded the termination paper, and submitted my master override token. I typed a single command into the terminal prompt. Nullify. The terminal flashed green. License status revoked. Rollback sequence scheduled. The next morning, I returned to the office for my mandatory knowledge transfer session. 5 young engineers in identical branded hoodies sat around the conference table, staring at their laptops with absolute indifference. The lead contractor, an arrogant kid named Mason, left his headphones resting on his neck while I spoke. On slide 4, you will see the traffic routing protocol, I explained. It requires manual weight adjustments in the scheduler, or the entire network will lock up under high volume. Mason smirked, not even bothering to look at the screen. We are going to wipe the legacy framework and rebuild everything on modern cloud servers anyway. It will take us a week. I smiled softly at his supreme confidence. Good luck replicating multi-node failovers without the custom spoofing routines I built. Mason blinked, slightly confused, but quickly went back to typing. They were not listening to me. They believed they could replace 10 years of custom engineering with basic code templates and arrogance. By 1 in the afternoon, I was sitting at my old desk for the final time. I opened the master repository and authorized one last clean export. I stripped away all corporate logos, replaced the license headers with my private holdings copyright, and encrypted the entire archive. I sent the file to an offline server, securing 10 years of my life work before closing the terminal forever. I walked over to the administration desk, dropped my access key on the counter, and headed toward the elevator. Vance was standing near the lobby, holding a fresh iced coffee. Leaving so soon, Nora? He asked with that same patronizing grin. I did not slow down as I passed him. I would wish you luck with the new infrastructure, I said quietly over my shoulder. But luck will not save what you are about to face. I pushed through the exit doors and stepped into the afternoon sun, leaving the corporate tower behind me for good. Revenge is not a sudden explosion. It is a slow, methodical process that builds quietly over time. 10 years ago, this company was nothing more than a failing startup with broken servers and constant outages. I sacrificed my health, my personal life, and my sanity to build their entire digital backbone from scratch. They rewarded my loyalty by waiting until I was no longer convenient, then dropping me the moment they thought they could automate my work. Sitting on my sofa with a hot cup of coffee, I watched the digital clock on my secondary monitor count down the final minutes. Vance Holloway had posted a shiny new update on his professional profile, boasting about leading the company into a new era of automated efficiency. I stared at his polished headshot, feeling no anger, only a quiet, resolute certainty. They had treated my work as an expendable utility, never realizing that I was the only thing holding their entire operation together. At precisely midnight, the automated system executed its routine check. Deep within the core files, my hidden verification script pinged the central license server one last time. It did not find an active key. Instead, it received a permanent revocation code tied directly to my termination document. No emergency alarms sounded in the office. No dramatic flashing lights triggered. The central infrastructure simply stopped processing requests, dropping every connection across 32 active servers in total silence. I closed my laptop, took a slow sip of my coffee, and leaned back against the cushions. Vance Holloway was probably asleep in his bed, dreaming about his next executive bonus and his brilliant vision for the future. He would wake up in a few hours to a wall of red error logs and a system that no longer recognized his authority. I opened a fresh browser tab and began looking at long-term travel destinations, ready to start the chapter of my life I had put on hold for far too long.